Commissioners, good morning. Dan Summers, Director of Bureau of Emergency Services and Emergency Management. I'll confess I have a lot of information here I have tried to boil down, and I know you have some time constraints today, so hold on. Here we go. Let me get through it and then make sure we have ample time to address your questions or concerns. I wanted to give you a brief situation update. I wanted to review some of the highlights of the BP and the federal response, the state actions, local actions we've taken, clarify with you all some recovery collection methodologies, and answer your questions. As you know, the Deepwater Horizon spill incident continues, unfortunately, with about 5,000 barrels or 210,000 gallons of spill per day. The dome operations were not successful. Unfortunately, we monitored that carefully on Friday night and Saturday morning, and BP continues to work aggressively with other remediation techniques. The winds and the currents continue to be in our favor, meaning that the plume continues to drift away from the Florida coast at the present time. The trajectory of those plumes are only good for about 72 hours. NOAA does that modeling from their Office of Scientific Support. And again, there are no threats to Florida at this point. The loop current, which got a lot of folks a little unnerved, this spill is well away from the loop current. Doesn't mean that it may not be a factor at some point in the future. But again, no impact from the loop current. There are very good modeling resources out there that we're able to view from day to day. However, just due diligence requires that the state of Florida continue to plan. Our beaches are open. We ask folks to come and enjoy. That has always been our message from day one in the current process. The state and BP have now sent out a survey instrument to local hotels, motels, and businesses so that they can gauge the impact, any local economic impact associated with the spill. This is, as of late yesterday evening, this is the current modeling of the spill. And if you will note, in the far right-hand corner there, we're about 298 statute miles from the leading edge of the spill to St. Petersburg, and that adds about another 100 miles from the northern point of Collier County. So any leading edge is still close to 300-some miles away. Pardon me. The booming discussion that you continue to hear on the national news or even on some of the local news, the booming efforts are for the counties, most northern counties of Florida. That is not a scenario for the counties along the southern peninsula. This is just for the northern counties where there's actual heavy product on the top of the ocean, not any weathered oil products. So while there was a big discussion statewide of booming planning, the boom philosophy is not something that we would have as a response and mitigation technique necessarily in Collier County, and I'll address that further here momentarily. The BP and federal actions, almost 10,000 personnel on site, almost 3.4 million gallons of oil and water mix has been recovered. There are 335 response vessels in use, 308,000 gallons of dispersant, 121,000 feet of boom, 450 BP and contract personnel are working in the state of Florida, and our area of coordination will be Coast Guard Office St. Petersburg. We had an early confliction with them in that part of their area of responsibility split the 10,000 islands. I protested that because I did not want to share area command between Key West and St. Petersburg. St. Petersburg has graciously offered to take care of all of Collier County within its response. I only have one command or operation there to work with. I wanted you to see the discussion related to the boom and the boom products. This is the typical ocean-type boom. There was some concern as to why we didn't stock this. This is a good illustration of how heavy this is, how manpower intensive, how large, how expensive, and the docking or wharf resources that are needed to get involved in that. It is not something in our hazard analysis or vulnerability for Collier County that would press us to own something like this just to make sure that we had access to it. As you can see, this is very robust, very heavy-duty material. Real quick, one of the successes that the governor's had, he does have a $25 million block grant in his hand, cash on hand from BP to help address some of the northern counties' initial local preparation and response capabilities. The governor rightfully did declare a state of emergency for those associated counties and expanded that later on to come all the way down to Sarasota County. But again, that was an effort to make sure that he had due diligence, primarily with the federal authorities, with leaning forward with their planning. Again, you all have seen the issues and the pictures here of the magnitude of this industrial accident. Let me tell you a little bit about local actions real quick. First of all, let me tell you that in coastal North Carolina, I did have the opportunity to drill and practice with the Atlantic Strike Team with the United States Coast Guard out of the Port of Wilmington. So I am familiar with these ocean booming and coastal remediation strategies. Certainly we didn't drill or have an event of this magnitude in coastal North Carolina, but I am familiar with how to properly integrate with the Coast Guard. I did immediately make aware the state and BP of our 10 inlets in Collier County that could have about 102,000 linear feet of boom based on our area contingency plans that we had on file. I went on ahead and did a hurricane response exercise yesterday with 65 people in our Emergency Operations Center. Again, doing a little bit of briefing on the oil spill, a little contingency, and making sure that we deconflict any minor issues with our EOC. So we are at top readiness posture today. We have really pushed out notification to local environmental and wildlife groups that they need to get on board with Florida FWC and DEP. There's a real issue here that spontaneous and converging unaffiliated volunteers should not participate in this effort. There is a liability issue, there's a compensation issue, and there is a training issue. BP has contracted with Tri-State Bird in accordance with the oil pollution plan as their organization to manage wildlife cleanup because the documentation is so intensive. So there is a leaning arm of that. Within Tri-State Bird, there's sub-affiliations such as Florida DEP, FWC, and other environmental groups that will work with them. So there is a hierarchy that needs to be in place to have these volunteers mobilize, receive the proper training if necessary. I will tell you that I have made sure that we have training resources available should it become necessary. Some of those might be available through our own risk management department, our local emergency planning committee based out of Fort Myers, community colleges, etc., even making sure that if necessary, we've got web-based training tools to manage some of that hazardous materials OSHA standard 1910.120 requirements. The Florida Division of Emergency Management, DEP, Secretary Souls are the lead on this from the state. They have been in contact with us at least twice a day, keeping us updated. They've done a very good job. I'm very confident in the response mechanism that the state of Florida has in place at this particular point. In addition to some of our other efforts, our hurricane debris removal contractor, our prime, Ash Britt, has already embedded in Pensacola with that operation. They are qualified and are set up with us within a scope of work to do hazardous materials cleanup. I've been in contact with them almost daily so that if I needed to position a contractor here in any case, whether it's us to move forward or to augment state or BP efforts, we have that lined up. Also, the state of Florida has hired additional contracting, WSI, internationally sized organization, to be ready for additional support. I've got additional scientific support on standby if needed, and actually this meeting has been moved tomorrow, but the Coast Guard will be meeting with Rookery Bay officials tomorrow for some additional environmental contingency planning.